All right, it's officially 12:05 where I'm at. I'm in California. By the way, I'm Candice Gliatto. I am the Director of Coaching and Education for Qnity, and I'm also a salon owner. I own Citrus Salon, located here where I am now in the Bay Area. So it's 12:05 here, 2:05 Central, 1:05 Eastern. I also have a salon in Portland, Oregon, so I'm doing dual states over here. I'm really excited to share with you what I have planned for us today because it's something that has truly transformed and made an impact in my own business. One of the things that I love to share as an educator is that everything that I'm out there teaching other salon owners and leaders are things that are active and alive in my salon. And so I've had the experience with them, I've navigated challenges, I've experienced amazing wins, and I can't wait to share this with you. So I want to kick off today. Now, webinars, let me just be honest with you guys. Webinars, sometimes I can't see you or hear you. So if you use the chat, that makes me feel great. I want to stay engaged with you guys and continue the conversation around this. And I want to start off, I've got a question for you, which is this. What percentage of your team, if you were to take a guess, I want you to think about your salon and spa teams. And I want you to guess what percentage of them experience some sort of math or money anxiety. If talking about numbers creates that feeling of, ooh, let me know what percentage of your team has that experience. Go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm curious what you think. Adrian says 100%. Okay. So I guess we're aligned in thinking that this is an issue out there, right? 75%. Now, those of you that are thinking about this, what impact does that have on your ability to grow? When you have a large percentage of your team that has number aversion, what does that do to your ability to be able to drive sales, really lock in on driving, the finance function of your business? How can it impact you? By the way, the answer to that question is 70%. Now, that's based off of our most recent Qnity surveys. It could have gone up. And every time I ask this question, I get some pretty lofty guesses. So, why do we think that is? What do we think causes that problem? I'm curious. Any guesses? One of the things that I hear a lot in my own salon is I just want to do hair. I don't want to talk about the numbers. But the other thing I hear in my salon is I want to make more money. Well, what's going on there? Here's the thing. Our theory at Qnity, oh, okay, thank you for Michael, limited mentorship. Yeah, that could absolutely be something that's kind of causing that anxiety around numbers. One of our theories at Qnity is that sometimes as leaders that feel confident in numbers, we get a little bit too excited, right? Maybe we're spitting out 101 KPIs and our team members who experience math anxiety are going like this. They're feeling like, oh my goodness, I can't keep up with all of these metrics. If we are just hounding them with KPIs, there's a very high possibility that we are causing confusion. Okay, keep that chat ready. What happens when you're confused? What do we do? What do I do when I'm confused? I know what I do. What does a team member do when they're confused? The answer is typically nothing. And here we are as leaders feeling like we're giving them all of these numbers and all of this data, yet they're not doing anything with it. And then we're frustrated. Well, when we're confused, we don't take action. If we want people to take action, we got to start getting them clear. The first thing is we got to unpack some myths. The reality is it doesn't take a math degree to drive sales. In fact, every type of math or every form of math that relates to driving both growth and profitability in your business is math that you learned in fourth grade or below. These are things that we can handle, but we kind of develop this mindset around it that tends to hold us back. I want to talk real quick before we get into our system about the idea of preneurship. When I talk about preneurship, what comes to mind? What's the familiar word? Most people say entrepreneurship. Well, there's a couple types of entrepreneurships. Yes, there is entrepreneurship. So, what is entrepreneurship? It's the activity of setting up a business or multiple businesses. You take on financial risk in the hope of profit. Your success relies on the action and performance of many, yourself and many, right? Now, there's another type of entrepreneurship that we don't talk about as much, and this is intrapreneurship. What do we think entrepreneurship is? Entrepreneurship is a business that operates within or under another business. So, your service providers, your hairstylists, your spa technicians, your nail tech, they are entrepreneurs. Now, the good part about entrepreneurship is you have little to no financial risk, and most often, your success relies on your own performance and action, right? So here's the thing. Are our team members thinking like preneurs? As entrepreneurs, we're always looking for how we can do something different to drive different results. And what we want to do is really challenge you to tap into that mindset of your team members. How do we get them to start thinking about doing something different to drive different results? One thing that both entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs can do is adopt the two-number growth system. Two-number growth is Qnity's simple and visual system to track, target, and drive sales. Now, when we look at two-number growth, we're really focusing on what is the most important piece of driving our revenue. And there's a lot of KPIs we can look at. We can look at retention, we can look at percentage of guest purchasing, we can look at rebooking, we can look at so many things, and those are all important metrics. But what are the two metrics that matter most? Okay, now let's start with a little activity, moving away from salon sales for a moment. Here's a dashboard of a car, right? There's a lot of things to look at on this dashboard. But what are the two things that matter most? Go ahead and put it in the chat. What are the two pieces of information that you need from this dashboard to be able to drive this car? Go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm curious what you guys think. Steering wheel and shifter. Those are tools. Absolutely. You definitely need those things. When we look at the dashboard itself, which is where we have all of our little meters, what is the data that we need from our car to be able to drive? Gas and brakes. Gas, yep. Brakes are important too. The answer is gas and speed. These are the most important parts of being able to drive your car. The gas and speed of driving sales is client count and average ticket. These are the numbers that matter most. This is where we want to put our focus and our intention. Now, what is client count? Client count is the number of times that a client comes into the business and spends money. You could look at this as visits or transactions, okay? This is butts and seats, people in treatment rooms. Without client count, there is no sales, right? We have to have a client in the building. Now, average ticket is the average amount of money that a client spends at each one of their visits. So this includes the money spent on services and products. Because in the spirit of keeping this simple, we are looking at average total ticket. Now, why do these numbers matter the most? Because when we take our client count, we multiply it by our average ticket, that equals our total sales. And that is the number that we're trying to drive. We're all going to have different ways of how we're going to get there. But ultimately, it's about having more clients and each client spending a little bit more. That's going to drive that top line. So I mentioned earlier that two-number growth system focuses on those two numbers, and really the intention behind it is to track, target, and drive sales. So let's talk about tracking. What we know about tracking is that people who regularly record their results are 50% more likely to progress than those who don't. So think about some things that you track. I know me, I track closing my rings every single day. And before I had this little guy, I had no awareness of how much I was moving exercise standing. Now that I'm tracking, I'm aware. And when I see that my circles or my rings look like this, I know it's time to pick up the pace. It's time to get up and walk around a little bit. That awareness is key. The other thing this does for me is it helps me to celebrate wins. When that little ring closes, I'm like, yes, I did it. Nailed it. And I feel good. And when you feel good, you feel confident. When you feel confident, you take action. So why do we track as it relates to our sales? It creates accountability, just like counting your steps. It creates awareness, and it creates the opportunity for us to celebrate our wins. Now, what are we tracking? Well, aligned with that two-number growth system, we're going to track our client count, our average ticket, and our total sales, retail and service combined. So we've talked about what to track and why it's important, and I think we can all agree that that awareness itself is going to help us to drive different results, but how often should we track? At Qnity, what we think is that daily is a bit too much. Daily sales can fluctuate quite a bit. You might have a day where you've got 2 extension installs, and then the next day you had 1 color correction that canceled, right? We can really see those ups and downs. Now, monthly, by the time the end of the month comes, so much time has passed, we can't really make any changes. We can't do anything about it. Weekly is the sweet spot. It's consistent, it's timely, and it gives you the opportunity to be proactive. It's a reliable number, and if we don't like it, we can do things differently. And if we do like it, we can celebrate it, and we can feel good about it every week. Now, Qnity is all about simple and visual tools. So the tools that we have to support weekly growth tracking is the weekly growth tracker for team and the weekly growth tracker for leader. What do you notice about the difference between these two tools? Okay, the one that's for team is simple and it's designed to be handwritten on. The one that's for leaders is digital. And of course, you can see it has a lot more rows and columns. This is a great tool for leaders because it doesn't trigger that math anxiety. This is a great tool for team because what it's going to do is create that awareness without creating that overwhelm. So what we're doing when we're tracking is we're tracking our growth for a 13-week period. Why 13 weeks? Well, it aligns with the calendar quarters. Quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, they're all 13 weeks long. Now, if you're a Qnity user, you may be familiar with the 8 seasons execution system or calendar system. It also aligns with that. One of our favorite parts about 13 weeks is that it creates the opportunity for somebody to double their income in a year and a half if they grow 17% per quarter. Hence the 17% challenge, which we'll get into in just a moment. So sticking with tracking, for leaders, they'll be tracking on a digital tool that looks just like this. This is one of Qnity's simple and visual tools that lives on Google Drive, and it just creates this high level of awareness and understanding of how each team member is doing. So how it works is you track for your location, so your total sales per location, and then you also track for each individual. Here you can see Taylor's weekly growth tracker, and we can see what she's sold each week, what her client count and her average ticket were. Now, how does it work? First, we input a baseline. A baseline is where we're at now. So in this case, we're entering what Taylor's average weekly sales were for the same 13 weeks of the previous year. Now there's a few different ways that you can calculate baselines. Our favorite way is the same 13 weeks of the previous year, but sometimes we have team members that are new. We can also look at the previous 26 weeks or even the previous 13 weeks. The thing to be aware of is seasonality within your business. For example, you wouldn't want to use the 13 weeks between October and the end of December as a baseline for the 13 weeks between January and the end of March, because there's just a difference in volume. Now, once we've got our input baseline, we're going to automatically have a 17% target generated. Okay, this is the beauty of the tool that's involved with the 17% challenge. You don't have to do any math, it does it for you. Once that 17% target populates, we're set up with our tracker, and our job as leaders is to track for our team every single week. When we track for our team members every single week, it creates awareness for us, and it gives us the opportunity to coach to opportunities and to celebrate wins. So over here on the right-hand columns, we can see how each team member grew in each category, and we can celebrate that or coach to it as needed. Now for team, as I said before, the tracker is a lot more simple. It is a paper tracker with much less rows and columns. They simply enter their name, enter the dates for each week. They're provided their baseline from their leader. Then they have their 17% target written in, and every single week they note their sales. So tracking in a nutshell is 3 simple steps. Establish your baseline, identify your target, in this case 17%, and track weekly. This is all about building a habit. And I always like to challenge everybody to try and start a habit streak. And I tell this story about one of my team members named Lindsay. Now, Lindsay is probably someone you could relate to, probably similar to several, of your team members out there. Lindsay is an incredible artist, fantastic hairdresser, and she just really wasn't that into the numbers part of her work. She didn't really like setting goals. When it came time for our quarterly one-on-ones, she just was like, oh man, can't I just chill where I'm at? I told her, let's make a deal. If you track only, that's it. You write down your sales every single week, I'll lay off. I won't be checking in around all the things that you said you were going to do, all of that. It won't make you set any other goals. Just track your sales every single week. And what you can see here on the right is the awareness alone started a little fire within Lindsay because what she saw was her wins. And those wins were her motivating factor. I don't know about you, but I'm also motivated by a win. When I win, I want to win more because I feel confident. And that's what happened with Lindsay. So, as it relates to tracking, that one little piece, taking less than 2 minutes a week to write down your numbers can create a huge shift like it did for Lindsay. In this case, 19% growth in just 1 quarter. Now, one of the things that you're here today to learn about is the 17% challenge. And a question I get a lot is, why 17%? Random? Well, I'll tell you why. 17% is a specific number. We got to know what our goal is to be able to strive for it. Now, it's also achievable and significant, right? So it's not so much of a stretch that it creates a feeling of defeat or disengagement, but also if you increase your sales by 17%, it means something. You're going to feel that, right? And then lastly, it's a way to break a big goal, like doubling your income, into small steps. Because as I shared earlier, if you grow 17% over 13 weeks, over and over again, it creates the opportunity for you to double your income in just 1.5 years. Now, that's the power of small steps. The other piece of this that's really unique is that it's not a contest. What's the difference between a contest and a challenge? Remember, this is a 17% challenge. A challenge is you competing with yourself. This is a me versus me approach. So it's not me saying, hey, Lindsay, I want you to do in sales what my stylist who's been here for 15 years, Adam, is doing in sales, because that could be defeating or overwhelming to Lindsay. So in this case, we're meeting Lindsay or your team members where they're at, and we're saying, where are you at now? Let's grow 17% from there. And what we're celebrating is growing against their best, is competing with themselves and really being their best selves instead of who's at the top of the chart, right? When we take a me versus me approach, it creates pride, it creates confidence, and it creates action. I always like to share. Small steps create confidence. Confidence creates action, and action creates results. So let's take a look at how these small steps can really lead into a big impact. So let's say you're working with a team member who's seen 12 clients a week, has a $130 average ticket. That's $1,560 in sales. As leaders, we can challenge this team member to consider two-number growth, client count and average ticket. What if we asked a team member, let's say it's Lindsay. All right, Lindsay, can you see two more clients in a week? Seems simple enough. If Lindsay's able to add two clients to her schedule a week, maybe she's going to promote herself, ask for referrals, whatever her approach is going to be, that's going to create it's going to take her sales from 1,560 to 1,950, a 17% increase just by taking on two more clients a week. Now let's lean in to average ticket. Let's say Lindsay's sitting there with her 15 clients and she increases her average ticket by just $10 from 130 to 140. Now Lindsay's sales are going to be $2,100. That's a 35% increase with two small, simple steps. That is the magic of two-number growth. It takes away the noise and the overwhelm and creates a clear route for somebody to drive significant results. So let's talk about the how. We've talked about tracking. We've talked about creating a really engaging target. We haven't really talked about what somebody can do to drive those results. This is what we call the Qnity dashboard. This is a really simple and visual way to create a strategy to drive both client count and average ticket. Now, what we're going to populate in these little orange and blue circles here are what we call the Qnity drivers. So I'm curious if you guys want to open up the chat, see if you can play along here. What are some things that we can focus on? What are the key drivers of client count? What is going to make more visits per week or more visits per year? How are we going to increase that? What can we do? Well, one thing we can focus on is referrals. This is driving new business into the salon, right? Maybe it's self-promotion. Maybe it's using social media, asking for reviews, asking for referrals. Whatever we can do to drive more clients into our chair or into our treatment room is going to create opportunity as it relates to average ticket or client count. Then there's retention. Retention is somebody comes in, enjoys a great service, they come back later for another one. Separate, but also related, kind of like cousins, is rebooking, okay? A lot of people put retention and rebooking in the same bucket. And I say, they're sisters, not twins, right? They do support each other, but rebooking can increase your frequency of visits. So making sure that we're being intentional about when each guest comes back will make that guest visit more times in a year, ultimately increasing our client count. Where retention is just they had a great experience and they came back at some point. This is rebooking so that they come back more often. Now, what's going to grow our average ticket? Remember, we're talking about total average ticket here. So things we can focus on to drive our average ticket would be our products, really making sure that we're educating our clients on all the products that are available to them so they can recreate the look at home and so that we can increase our average ticket. Add-ons, making sure we're really exploring what's happening so that our clients know what's available for them to add on, which is going to create more value for them and a higher average ticket. And lastly is pricing, making sure not only that we're pricing appropriately, but also knowing in many cases, as we grow through a salon's career path, we have pricing opportunity. If we look at our growth strategy through the lens of these 6 drivers, there is endless opportunity to grow. Even if you can't take any more new clients, your retention is perfect and you're rebooking everybody every time. You sell products to every single person, you do add-ons every time, there still is always opportunity to grow in pricing. So this can be the backbone of how you drive growth in your business. Now, this might not be news to you. Maybe looking at it through the lens of this Qnity dashboard is a way that makes it a little bit more digestible, but ultimately it's going to take leadership and inspiration and motivation to get your teams to really lock in to these 6 key areas so that they can drive client count and average ticket. The simple and visual approach is step 1. Really removing the noise, saying focus on client count and average ticket. These are the ways that you can get there. It's going to require leadership. You're going to need to coach your team, motivate them, and engage them. Now, that's the inspiration behind the National 17% Growth Challenge. Now, we have done this 3 times before, and we're so excited to be doing it again. The 17% challenge allows you as salon owners and leaders to enter your team into the challenge, and we will provide support and resources for you while you drive your 17% challenge. So I'll share with you some success stories and really kind of what's possible. What we're looking to do is train your team on how to understand the 2-number growth system, track, target, and drive. And your team will have paper trackers that they'll use every single week to drive their sales and create that awareness and that accountability. And if every single person on your team can grow, then your salon is going to grow. Now, the reality is maybe not every single person on your team will grow 17%, but what's possible if maybe even just half of your team grows 17%? Let's look at it. For a single location with 10 employees that average maybe $2,000 a week in total sales, if just 5, so half of those employees, hit 17% growth each quarter, by the end of the year, it's an additional $150,000 in revenue. Now, let's say you've got a multi-location salon. You've got 50 employees that average $2,000 a week. If 25 of those employees hit their 17% challenge every single quarter through the end of the year, that's an extra $741,000 in additional revenue. Talk about small steps really adding up to big results. So, who's interested in this? Now, I'll tell you this. I'm going to be leading this and I'm going to be helping to support the leadership teams as they roll out 17% challenges in their business. I also have my own team participating in a 17% challenge and they're excited. Right? I've started to plant the seeds. They know about it. And what's really exciting for them is that they get to do something that's kind of outside of their 4 walls. They get to be involved in something that's a little bit bigger than themselves. So let's talk about how it works. So what we've got are 5 simple steps for being able to participate in this. It starts with registering your salon locations. Okay? If you are new to Qnity, each location is $500 and you get a ton of resources and support with this. I think JP just put the registration link in the chat, so if you're looking for it, there it is. We're going to start on Monday, March 16th with a kickoff webinar. Okay, this is an opportunity for you and your leadership team to get the high-level view of 2-number growth. A lot of the things that we talked about earlier today are going to be trained in that webinar. It's going to be at Monday the 16th, March 16th at 12 p.m. Then we have our tracker setup webinar. That's going to be the next week on Monday the 23rd at 12 p.m. Central. Here's where I'm going to make sure that you know how to access your digital 17% tracker, and I'm going to train you on how to populate it with baselines so that you can see what your team's 17% goals are. The last step is a team launch prep webinar. In this webinar, which is on Monday, March 30th at 12 p.m. Central, I'm going to be teaching you how to kick off a 17% challenge with a lot of excitement and engagement. Now, once you've kicked it off and the following week, the first week of April, you will officially launch the challenge in your salon. Once you've kicked it off, we are going to provide ongoing support to make sure that you and your leadership team are able to drive success in this challenge. Now, you're going to have a lot of resources. One of them is going to be a video of yours truly, very short video that you can share with your whole team around how to track, target, and drive using the 2-number growth system. 8 minutes long. You can ask them to watch it. They'll have all the information that they need to be able to track weekly. From there, we've got bi-weekly group coaching sessions for leaders. So in these sessions, and they start on April 14th, the week after your first week of tracking, I'll share with your managers and leadership teams, some of our best practices around engaging and leading and keeping the team focused and keeping them action oriented, right? We'll troubleshoot any challenges you might be having. If somebody isn't tracking, we'll talk about how to get them tracking, and we'll celebrate your wins. We're going to shout out all your team members that have hit their 17% targets and really just enjoy our success in this together. Now, on the off weeks, when we don't have our bi-weekly group coaching sessions for leaders, I'm still going to be available for support. So I'll be keeping bi-weekly office hours on the off weeks where you're able to ask questions, celebrate wins with me, we can work through challenges, and of course, you'll be able to connect with peers. After you register for the 17% challenge, you'll get the dates for all of these resources sent to you so that you know exactly where you're supposed to be and when. Now, these office hours are optional. These coaching sessions are highly encouraged. I want to talk about who should be on these coaching sessions. If you are an owner/leader that works with your team on driving sales, you should be at these sessions. You're going to get a lot of great tips and tricks to be able to drive engagement. Maybe you have a leadership team and there's opportunity for them to level up their own coaching skills and engagement skills. This is a great opportunity to have your managers participate so that they can have new resources and new tools in their tool belt to be able to engage the team around sales. So with that, I hope to see you all join the 17% challenge. I'm going to share with you a QR code that you can scan to register. Also, JP did put the link in the chat, but are there any questions? Does anybody have any questions about how this challenge works? Or maybe you have a question about the 2-number growth system. Go ahead and put it in the chat. I'm happy to stay on and answer it. Otherwise, I want to thank everybody who showed up today for their time and their engagement in the chat. And if you're watching the recording, I can't wait to meet you when we kick off this 17% challenge. And a special shout out to Forrest, who sponsored this challenge. If your business uses their software, you can get a special discount code for $100 off your enrollment. So I'll see you in March for the kickoff of our National 17% Challenge. Have a great one.